Hello, I am Rebecca Deep, the Exhibitions Manager here at Visions Art Museum in San Diego, California. I would like to welcome you to a virtual tour of Judith Content's solo exhibition, Shadow Dance. Your tour will be led by the volunteer curator of the exhibition, Charlotte Bird. For more information on the works in this exhibition and others here at the museum, please visit the current exhibitions page on our website. Please enjoy.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Bird. I have had the enormous pleasure of being the volunteer curator for this show, Judith Content's Shadow Dance. Judith is an exquisite artist, and she's able to convey subtlety, calm, serene surroundings in this moment of anxiety that we're all dealing with. So join me as we go through the exhibition, and I'll talk a little bit about what I know of her process and her inspirations. Before we start, let me talk a little bit about Judith's processes. She uses two Japanese shibori techniques. One is Arashi, and the other is, on top of that, is itajime. The Arashi-shibori means wrapped and compressed. So she takes her fabric, which is always something in the neighborhood of 12 inches. This is a 12 by 60 scarf, so that you get some sense of the width of the pieces. And she tears them from selvage to selvage. So she takes the fabric, it's always silk. She wraps the pole with string, and then she either dip dyes or pours her dye or the discharge product. The dye adds the color, the discharge removes the color. Her dyes are all hot dyes. They're not boiling, but they're kind of simmering, both the dye and the discharge. So that's Arashi. So itajime, and you'll see in the exhibition several pieces that have leaves in them. So she puts the leaf on top of the wrapped fabric, and then she wraps again over the leaf with thread. When the dye or the discharge goes through to the silk, it will either intensify whatever's happening, or it will reduce the amount of color that's put in or taken out. She works in her backyard, and she will work from 1 to 2 weeks on her dye work. She will dye enough fabric for 2 to 3 pieces so that she can select the colors and the imagery that works best together. And she's one of the few people I know who knows how to do this, and she's been doing it for such a long time. She is a master. These two pieces, Undercurrent and Meltwater, are that kind of fabric selection. These are both discharged pieces. They started with a very dark blue silk. She wraps the poles, and she gets some interesting different kinds of patterns. Undercurrent is talking about the tide and the ebb and flow of water on the sand, and Meltwater is talking about climate change and glaciers and the ice melting and the water flowing out of the surface of the glaciers. One of my favorites. There are 4 sculptural pieces in the exhibition that are called nests. This piece is Dragonfly. The other pieces are New Moon, Quercus lobata, Amber Moon. They are crocheted pieces. Judith learned to crochet from her dad. Isn't that cool? The twigs are all collected from the High Sierra and from the Lake Tahoe area. Some of them are willow, some are manzanita twigs, and she dries them and prepares them for these very Zen kinds of sculptures. This piece is called Soundings, and it refers to measuring the ocean depths. She was thinking about what those depths might look like and how to translate them into silk. Much of Judith's work is inspired by places she's been. This particular piece, Rios Amarillos, was inspired by the brilliant yellow cottonwoods that line New Mexico's rushing creeks in the autumn. This is Magnolia, and this is the piece where she wrapped the shibori and then wrapped the leaf over the top of the wrapped and compressed work. And all of the pieces that have the magnolia leaves in them are discharged. And depending on how she dipped it and what was happening with the chemical, some of them are darker than others. She told me one day at the very bottom of the hole, often that's the darkest because it get down into the folds so much. The next pieces, Aftermath and Bittersweet, talk about the Northern California fires. They've got bright colors. The way Judith develops her work is once she has the fabrics dyed and discharged the way she wants them, she has a design wall in her studio, and she starts to place the strips of fabric and move them around until she finds what she calls the intuitive symmetry of the pieces. She'll find a central motif that she particularly likes and will divide that and then begins to build the way the pieces go together. Once she's got the form that she wants, then she takes each individual strip and puts batting and backing behind it and quilts each of those individual strips one at a time. As she quilts them, she hangs them back up and quilts the next piece so that there's a rhythm to the way they're quilted. Judith is an inveterate thrift shopper, and she has gone all over the West looking for muffin tins and other kinds of things for these pieces. They're in the Ragamuffin series, and there are several of them. Judith told me that she never throws scraps away, so she has 40 years of scraps, and she will go through her scrap pile to find pieces that go together to work on these Ragamuffin series. She works on them in the car as they drive. Often they're machine stitched to start with, and then they're embellished with beads and hand stitching while they're driving to some interesting place. Evanescence talks about the fog rolling in and obscuring the landscape. Notice on this one that the center motif is horizontal. Resonance is a bit of a change from her construction techniques. She designed the piece in squares and moved the squares around because to her they seemed to be in conversation. And she imagined the conversations to be deep and animated and to vibrate with resonance. Oscuro means darkness in Spanish, and this one talks about the infinite variety of values from darkness to light. Passage refers to the mountain ranges that she has seen in her travels. Cliffs, chasms, gorges, waterfalls are all things that come out of her dye bath. This particular piece, Passage, refers to the jagged Flatiron Mountains of Colorado. When Judith talked to me about her work, she said that her natural size is about 5 feet by 6 feet. And she set herself an experiment to make very small pieces. These 5 pieces were each dyed specifically for their size. She used the same technique to produce the fabric, and she used a very similar technique to select the fabrics that she wanted to use in order to experiment with a very small format. I think they are exquisitely successful. Descent, isolation, and veil are all pieces done during the quarantine. And as you can see, over the period of time, the quilting becomes increasingly dense, a kind of meditation in response to her isolation. This piece is called Veil. It's the last of the 3 pieces that she's done during the quarantine period. She's starting to add color back. And what I want you to see specifically is, remember that center motif? So here's the center motif in color, and these outer pieces, similarly colored, interspersed with the discharge pieces, but this is densely quilted. And the reason it's called veil is there's a certain feeling of there's something behind it, but we're still quarantined and you're looking through a veil of fabric to a mysterious something behind it.